I want to set some context before we begin. If we look at AWS as a company, it's the largest cloud service provider in the world. We're seeing many companies from ISVs to service providers, startups to large enterprises such as Cisco, co-selling with AWS, delivering joint solutions, looking to scale their revenue growth. And what I've been seeing, talking to many partners, is they're making co-selling with AWS a core part of their go-to-market strategy. And for some, it's even their main engine, go-to-market growth engine that they're looking to move forward with. So I'm excited about this panel. We have a terrific panel of speakers. Nelson from AWS, he leads a co-sell team working with fast-growing startups to help them grow and scale their co-selling motion with AWS. Derek, who leads a Cloud Alliance team at Own Backup. Own Backup is one of those fast-growing startups that actively co-sells with AWS, and they're a leading provider of SaaS cloud protection platform. And Barlas, who's a VP of Cloud Go-to-Market at Yellowbrick data warehouse for hybrid and multi-cloud environments. And he's also the co-owner of Caddyshack, which is an AWS partner advisory council. Has 230 plus alliance directors who get together, share knowledge, best practices, and how to expand that partnership with AWS. And they meet with key AWS execs on an ongoing basis. Very excited about having you here. And with that, we'd love to get started. Nelson, love to hear from you on how partners co-sell with AWS today. What are the different motions that you're seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I cover startup ISVs, and kind of the typical path to getting started with AWS on the co-sell front is to simply just go to our website and click there's to our partner network webpage to become a partner. It'll kick off workflows internally with AWS, and we'll have a partner development rep reach out and open the discussion. From there, we do a technical review of the partner solution that they want to start co-selling. AWS, being very customer-centric, customer-focused, we want to make sure that we're referring and working with partners that have enterprise-grade solutions that can stand up to security, best practices, and AWS architectural best practices as well. From there, it's the typical process is then getting listed on our marketplace and figuring out which solutions, getting that configured and that sort of thing. And then where my team really starts picking up the ball is we start focusing on what is the better together story that we're talking about or we're going to bring to end customers. We need to be able to tell these customers a story about why this ISV solution and AWS working together solves some sort of problem or enables something different or new. So we really spend a lot of time digging into this kind of partner marketing topic of what's the better together story. And then from there, the partner gets access to our the ACE portal, where they can start sharing leads back and forth with AWS. And you mentioned a little bit about the motions. Each ISV or each relationship has a slightly different goal. Typically, this points to revenue at the end of the day, but some ISV partners, given the stage of where they are, just want a lot of top of funnel awareness, and then we can work down to get to the figure out how to work those opportunities once they start coming in. And then other ISVs need help with they want access to budget that's been allocated to AWS spend. They want technical support in these accounts. They want procurement support. So there's a lot of different types and sizes and shapes of partners that we work with, and they frequently have different goals.
I see. Nelson, for let's say an ISV partner that wants to engage the AWS sellers more, how would that work? How'd they go about doing that?
Yeah, so from in my experience, one of the best ways to get started with AWS and start getting access to our sales organization is to start sharing the deals. We've refined this better together the positioning before we start sharing the deals, because we need, as soon as the opportunity gets shared to the Amazon account managers and the account teams, we need to start making sure that everybody's on the same page and understands what we're doing, what the value prop is together. So start sharing these opportunities, and the Amazon team can help pick up those opportunities, engage, and figure out, what is the key ask that the partner has, and then work with our field organization to figure out how we can help support that ask.
Great.
But getting started, submitting the opportunities in the first place to just get started is critical, because that's what gets the ball rolling, and we can start learning from there, and we can start getting the motions going and see success when we help accelerate deals, expand them, those sorts of things, before we start really going wide. It's very much a walk before you run, figure out where you want to go, and then stay focused, and then we can figure out how to expand when the time's right.
Makes sense. Derek, would you be able to share own backups journey and co-selling with AWS and how you're working with AWS today?
Yeah, happy to. So we just started our third year of co-selling with AWS. And about 2 years ago, I was brought in to convert our AWS vendor-only relationship into more of a full-scale partnership. This included co-sell, co-go-to-market, joint innovation, and really everything else that the APN has to offer for its ISV partners to support its growth goals. We're now managing thousands of concurrent co-sell opportunities with AWS, and have our AEs engaging AWS on literally every single deal where it's been identified that AWS is either a primary or secondary public cloud provider. As you grow within the APN, there are different incentive-based co-sell programs that ISVs can take advantage of based on a bunch of different factors, like your product type, your co-sell performance, customer stories, competencies, technical product validation, some of the things that Nelson just mentioned, right? And I think it's important to know that there's not really one size fits all for each ISV. The APN has so many different types of programs to fit different partners. We are a part of a bunch of them that we can get into if needed. But I just think it's important that each ISV or partner works with their PDM to identify its set of goals and work backwards from there. They will help you identify the different co-sell programs and incentive-based offerings that are right for you. And then you can kind of target those pre-qualifiers that you need to go through to get to them. So that's kind of where we are right now, based on a 3-year plan I put into action about 2 years ago, and happy to share more as needed.
Great to see the success Own Backups has been having. That's amazing. You have thousands of deals you're co-selling AWS on. A couple of follow-up questions for you. What would you say Own Backups goals or metrics are? What are you looking for in the partnership overall?
Our number one goal, our belief is that if we satisfy this goal, everything else will follow, which is being the easiest partner to work with. If we prove to be an easy partner to work with, where we bring deals that are legitimized, where we come in with our sellers having a point of view and a clear ask for each of the AWS sellers and account team, that everything else will follow. Every other metric that we're after will follow. And those metrics are really, I think, what everyone's metrics are, which is win rate, increased revenue, additional share of AWS, committed spends. And what was talked about on a previous deal is kind of trying to loop in other partners as well. We have a lot of data that says as we add partners to deals, we increase, win rates and deal size. And AWS has been a huge part of that for us. So that's really what we look at.
I see. Thanks for sharing. Barlas, you work with 230 plus AWS Alliance directors, so you hear a lot about their experiences, best practices that they put in place. Love to hear from you on what you've heard from various different partners on processes, whether it's having their sellers engage with the AWS field or different roles that they put in place to effectively co-sell.
Yeah, we have a lot of information on this, and we preach a lot about this a lot of times. The number one thing that we see is important for a successful AWS relationship is to have a designated Cloud Alliance Director, what we call a CAD, And that is one of the most important things, because PDMs have, they can't do any work inside your own organization. And a salesperson has different types of levers that are needing to be pulled for them to close deals. So having a cloud alliance director is the number one important thing to being successful with AWS, I think. And then after that, you were asking about engagement with sellers. I think having your product aligned to how sellers are being comped, like being able to create a superpower that aligns with the specific team that you're trying to get with. So I'll give you an example. Yellowbrick, for what I do, is a data warehouse, and we deal with a large enterprise, right? So we are in the companies, we're in the VPC of the customer, and we basically help these large enterprises get to their data faster. Our way that we get AWS sellers to notice what we're doing is by bringing in the notion of drag, right? This is something that most AWS sellers really care about, which is $1 on our product causes this infrastructure spend to support our product every month. So for Yellowbrick, $1 equals $1.60 in drag into AWS products within 30 days. So our average sale is $250,000. So if you can think of that, every quarter, $250,000 brings in $400,000 in AWS spend to support our products. That is super important for AWS, right? It's 160% gets brought in for every dollar that your customer pays on Yellowbrick. That's an important number. So our superpower is that $1 to $1.60, and we're in the customer's VPC. Many people consider their superpower to be what they do. Oh, we're in security. We endpoint security. We're in data warehousing. We do this. That's not the superpower. The superpower is the difference, that 1-inch difference between you and everybody else in that field and the AWS product that you're also up against, because I guarantee all of us have that. The other second thing that we find is very important for success, and Michael Musselman from Laceworks and Ryan Norton from CloudReach, all these guys do a really, really great job of it, is identifying the exact team that you need to focus on. So if you're an enterprise play, focus on enterprise. If you're an SMB play, focus on SMB. But then once you figure out which division you're in, make sure you go deeper. There's different divisions inside enterprise. There's greenfield, there's large enterprise, there's medium enterprise, and then there's verticals. For me, my ideal team is financial services and large enterprise, which is mostly in New York. So there's about 6 or 7 teams that specifically do that. It's a lot easier to stab AWS and bleed out to the rest of the country, not to be too bloody, than trying to put a blanket over the entire country. Once you get one set of teams to love you, it makes it a lot easier to reference those teams and move on. So I would say the 2 most important things that we preach after having a Cloud Alliance director is superpower, understand it very well, and understand who are your people inside AWS and focus on them so you're not overwhelmed.
Great insights. Derek, speaking of best practices, and if we look at a successful co-sell motion, love to hear from you if you have an example deal, co-sell deal, that you would love to see more of within Own Backup.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if it's down to any one deal. It's the type of deal. What we look for, what I preach to my sellers is that this is a give to get relationship. It takes a bit of time to build your brand, your trust with these AWS sellers. They are hit up by probably hundreds of partners each week. And unless you differentiate yourself and be that easy partner to work with, it becomes very difficult. So the deals that we look for are the most legitimized deals and opportunities that we can bring to AWS as part of that give to get. Work that deal with the AWS seller until closed won, or what AWS considers launched. and then figure out what parts of that deal can be replicated. What you're looking for, what I'm looking for out of our sellers, is to take the success of that deal, reach out to that account management team at AWS and say, what other clients do you have in your book of business that have these same type of resiliency gaps that we can solve for? And then let's work together on them, right? We're looking to bring, own backup originated deals to AWS so that in turn, right, the give to get, that we get AWS originated deals back. And so for us, we run reports on all of our launched opportunities every month. We take those launched opportunities, we build a point of view around them, and try to map back to those account managers and figure out, how do we replicate this? Here are the success factors that we've identified. Let's go after the rest of your book of business and create those AWS originated deals where they walk us in, they see the resiliency gap, and they know that we're a great fit for their client, which is what they're looking for out of their partners.
I see. And Derek, given you have thousands of co-sell deals, love to hear how Own Backup has set up processes internally with your sellers to enable them to facilitate the co-sell motion, because I think your team is enabling the motion from your side.
Yeah, so the changes came in a fury of CRM changes. We weren't built to be originally a public cloud partner. Our partnerships and channels were more on the ISV, the ecosystems that we support the reseller side. And so for us, the way we had to expand from an operational perspective was people and automation. But you can only hire so many people, right? So we look for automation, which is where Workspan came in. And when we started working together, I have directors in 3 continents with managers, and they were very quickly overwhelmed with all of the co-sell needs, not just of our account managers, but also the ones that AWS started to bring to us. So we hit a critical mass where we started to identify CRM gaps and which ones we could fix, and we fixed those. And then we identified gaps in which we couldn't fix within our own CRM, which is then when we reached out to you guys at Workspan. And the automation piece is the only way to survive. There are constant updates that need to be made to each opportunity. And without Workspan, we wouldn't be able to do that. We wouldn't be able to scale for the growth that we are projecting. Which we did a poor job of in the beginning. We grew before we scaled. Now we're stepping back and looking at, to hit these growth goals, what do we need to do to scale in the beginning? And that's through automation and going digital.
Got it. Nelson, when you work with startups, they're fast-growing startups, at some point they're looking to expand, or they're getting pulled into more and more deals, and different teams within AWS wanting to work with them, and they need to scale. What have you seen as best practices? What have these startups done well, or even other partners too?
Yeah, so I would revert back to one of my original comments around figuring out your superpower. The Amazon account managers are incredibly customer focused, customer obsessed. It takes a lot of time to earn trust with end customers, and pushing solutions that don't meet the end customer where they are or what they need, and optimizing on other things like consumption, I don't think is the right way to go. In fact, we've had multiple startups that I personally, as an individual contributor in the past, covered that were all about cost optimization, or we have a whole host of tools that make it easier to use, or easier to use Amazon services in different ways, or remove the need for certain types of technical resources at the end at the end customer. And those types of solutions enable end customers to achieve their goals better. That's what we're focused on, and that's what the Amazon account managers need to bring to their end customer. Trust is hard to build, easy to break. So we definitely focus on bringing in the right partner, and that means really teasing out the superpower. There's categories where we have multiple partners that at least on their websites will present very similar looking positioning and messaging and even functionality. And it takes a bit of effort and time with the Amazon account, the partner team, to really tease out what are these differences, look into customer references internally, or where the partner shares data with us on how their solution is being used, what it solved, who they competed against, all those sorts of things, in order to really tease out that superpower so that Amazon can continue to deliver on that customer obsession and trust. From there, what else has worked? Once you get these first handful of joint wins, we can externally market some of those wins. A lot of our startup partners put out press quite regularly on customer wins or customer successes. We can do other field activities like dev days and webinars. We can help startups get in front of various sales teams, like Barlis was mentioning, and a whole bunch of financial services teams in the New York area that he spends his time networking with. We can help figure out what are the right teams to expand to, and then get in front of those. But the key thing here is when you're, especially if you're a startup, start small and stay focused, and then we'll figure out how to replicate those wins from there.
That makes sense. Great insight. Barlis, what would you say for a partner looking to expand their co-selling with AWS are the key technology enablers or solutions that you think they should have?
I think Workspan is a phenomenal tool. The number one problem that we see with partners that are engaging with AWS is they don't understand a lot of the time that, one, AWS gauges success of partners by Marketplace, right? And I know that sounds kind of self-fulfilling. Oh, but they get a percentage of it. So of course they're going to gauge it by that. But remember, as we enter things into ACE, that it's a great way for them to kind of notice what you're doing. But the real gauge is Marketplace. And being able to put things into ACE and Marketplace. And when it closes the Marketplace, AWS can then be able to gauge the revenue, the real revenue coming in. However, as you put things into ACE, 1 to 2 things when you're first starting out is not going to be a problem. But as you get more involved, you start putting your renewals in, which I 100% think is a very big differentiator from partners that are successful earlier than not. But put your renewals into ACE, and trying to update that on a daily basis becomes a full-time job. So hiring an operations person to do that by themselves is a full-time job. With Workspan, it kind of makes it go faster, easier, and that way your Salesforce and your ACE is kind of optimized. There's no reason for you to be spending 6 hours updating, 500 opportunities every week when you can get that all done by your sales staff in Salesforce.com. So I think the technology of Workspan is phenomenal and saves a lot of time for a lot of partners. So it's a really great tool. That would be my number one.
Thanks for sharing that. And Derek, from your perspective, if you were to recommend a tech stack type of capabilities that you'd recommend another ISV or service partner to have to effectively co-sell, what would those be?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, the volume becomes so high that you can only hire so many people, right? So you need the automation piece, which obviously is where Workspan comes in and will allow us to scale. We're just talking about Marketplace. We actually also use Tackle.io. They're a middleware solution for helping us automate our Marketplace processes. From a Salesforce perspective, being aligned with your CRM team so that your Salesforce appearance becomes more partner friendly. A lot of us started off in very much a direct selling motion. And new partners, new channels, sort of upset that cart at some point. So, for us, being in year 3, that's what we've implemented to date. But really satisfying the volume need through Workspan is going to be the greatest achievement of our tech stack to date so far.
Automation and registering an opportunity in ACE, making sure that's updated so both companies have the latest info on a deal and work well together.
It really comes down to making sure that we're just as satisfied as AWS is, right? They want the same updates. They want to know where we are in the deal cycle.
Right.
They want to know that we're moving forward in alignment with them. And really the only way to achieve that is through a solution like this. So for us, it'll be game changing in year 3.
Can I double down on that for a second?
Of course.
Well, what we were talking about, what I was saying before, besides all your regular deals, one of the wonderful things that people don't always remember is you've got some existing book of business that has been going direct, and that's great. But taking existing renewals and putting them through ACE is a really easy way to increase your visibility to AWS overnight. Like, unfortunately, Brett, who is supposed to be here, Brett Fountain, who is supposed to be here, he just couldn't due to some issues. One of the ways that Deepwatch that he works for became successful, they were doing $1 million in deals through ACE and Marketplace last year. And this year, he convinced his C-level to go, you know what, we've got this $3 million book of business that's just sitting in our renewals. Let's put all of that into ACE and put all of that into Marketplace. Let's close those deals through Marketplace. Overnight, he went from $1 million for 12 months to $4 million in 1 quarter. So taking those renewals and putting them through ACE, and then giving that understanding to AWS and hopefully maybe deciding to take it through Marketplace can really make you have a meteoric rise. I mean, Brett gets invited to all of the NFL games, all of the PGA Tour events. Like he was just in Napa Valley last month, meeting with PGA players, race games, and then he also gets invited to have more strategic partnership with AWS. So it's a no-brainer for me to do. So it might be something that someone listening here might understand. Put all of your stuff into Salesforce, send it all in ACE over to AWS, and you never know. You could be on a PGA tour with the AWS next time.
Well, and think of it as a churn reduction tool, right? That's what we pitch to our CRO, right? Pushing renewals through is a churn reduction tool that, as we start to measure even more, becomes, to this point, even more valuable than we thought to us. So I would redouble down on that double down.
That's terrific advice. And Nelson, speaking of Marketplace, could you share how Marketplace transactions fit into the co-sell motion and deal, and where you see this headed the next year?
Yeah, so the Marketplace is just actually turned 10 years old, and it's completely transformed the way that end customers find, buy, procure, deploy, and govern third-party offerings. So it's done only good things for end customers and for our partner ecosystem. If I'm not mistaken, there's something like 2,000 plus software vendors in there, 330,000 active customers. And within those vendors, there's multiples. Vendors that frequently have multiple listings there as well. The Marketplace continues to innovate. There's different categories. There's different tagging systems and whatnot, so that end customers can find the right solution at the right time. Where do I see this going? Just an increased focus year over year on driving eyeballs to the Marketplace, transacting through the Marketplace, and from a startup perspective, we are seeing more and more startups come to us at an earlier stage, wanting to transact through the Marketplace and wanting to partner with Amazon. So the takeaway from that is that there's clearly going to be more solutions in the Marketplace going forward.
Barlas and Derek mentioned the benefits that they've seen in transacting the Marketplace. Do you see other benefits that you can share with partners, why they should have a listing on AWS Marketplace, and what benefits will they see in the co-sell partnership?
Yeah, end customers and Amazon account managers are all motivated to, and the ISVs, just given these topics like access to bigger AWS budget, and the compensation and motivation for both the Amazon account team and the end customer. So there's benefits for everybody involved to transact through the marketplace.
That's helpful, I think, for a lot of partners that are looking to start the co-sell journey, and marketplace is a key enabler, and understand how they can benefit from that listing and driving more transaction co-sell deals through the marketplace as a private offer, for instance. Varlas, in your community of AWS Alliance directors, when they look out the next year, what trends do they see or changes that they're preparing for with their AWS partnership?
So with the Caddyshack, which is what the name of the company is Caddyshack Cloud Alliance Directors. But we every 2 weeks get a senior manager from AWS like Chris Cruz or Mona Chadha or Rachel Mushawar. And we really have kind of molded what's going to be happening over the next 12 months based off of what they've told us is important to AWS. And then, of course, we have advisory groups that we give information back to AWS on what is important to us after that. The number one thing that I can tell you AWS is very focused on, and my partners are very focused on this year, is getting a better co-sell motion with Marketplace. I know that I'm harping on Marketplace a lot, but Ruba Borno, who's the worldwide head of partners for AWS, has said that Marketplace is the goal for everything in the next 6 to 8 months. She really wants to push more into Marketplace. And that's why AWS has focused on this Forrester report, the TEI report that just came out, that talks about why buyers buy from Marketplace and why sellers sell through Marketplace. And I think it's so important because, like, if you look at the numbers at the Marketplace sellers event that happened in Seattle a couple of weeks back, Chris Cruz got up, and Chris Cruz is head of the APO, which is the APN in Marketplace for AWS. Chris Cruz got up and gave these numbers. I think it was 27, 80, 40. And it's the numbers to remember. 27% more likely to close a deal if it's on Marketplace, 80% larger deal if it's on Marketplace, and 40% faster close rate on the deal if it's on Marketplace. That, and the fact that it covers, your invoicing, those things cost money, right? You hire somebody to do your invoicing, you hire somebody to do your collections, you hire somebody to pay for your credit cards. So it covers all of those costs. But from now, for next 12 months, we're really working on making sure that we have a better together story. And the better together story starts with a marketplace, because at the end of the day, like I said before, marketplace is how AWS will measure your success. Steve Orban, who was in charge of the APO back a couple months back, and he left. When I first reached out to him, I said, "Hey, Steve, I'd like to talk to you about Yellowbrick." His first question was, "All right, what are you doing on Marketplace?" Like that is an important thing to have, a number to have. And like I said, the renewals, we're pushing as many people to go through with the renewals in the Marketplace as possible, because it builds up your brand inside AWS. So next 12 months, focus is Marketplace right now.
Derek, how about for own backup? When you look out the next 12 months?
Yeah, I would second a lot of what Varlas just said. I think you're going to find that AWS is going to put an even higher focus on growing through partners. So using partners to support its own growth goals. So as you can figure out how you align your messaging to that on the partner side, you'll go that much farther in strengthening your partnership. And we've felt the same marketplace trends that Varlas was just speaking to. For us, we lead with marketplace on every deal. And I think an important factor to that is being compensation and price neutral. I think one of the biggest worries as we shift towards this new marketplace environment and trend is that your buyers don't think or believe that you'll be price neutral. So being able to communicate and improve that out, and then internally to push co-sell and to push marketplace, being compensation neutral. That's one thing I push for, in seeing this trend with AWS, is making sure that our sellers get paid the exact same way, regardless if they take it through marketplace or another reseller or go direct. And so for us, that's been an important factor in gaining internal buy-in to support these trends.
Yeah,
I think
I
that's.
can't tell you how awesome that is that you're doing comp neutral, man. Comp neutral is the way to go. And not everybody can do comp neutral, right? Because your CEO is going to be like, I'm not giving that up. Like the salesperson has to pay for it. So Laceworks, one of our great partners, Michael Musselman is one of the best Cloud Alliance directors that ever lived. But he does not do comp neutral. But what he does do is on the back end, after he closes the deal, he gives a bonus that gives the salesperson back the money they would have lost. And that builds that muscle memory to go through Marketplace. And something that Derek just said, I think was awesome. Getting your salespeople to understand the value of cloud by doing training when you first come on board into the company of this is why cloud is important to our customers. Going through the Marketplace is important because, and then a quarterly training after that to make sure everyone stays on the same page is beyond necessary. And if you're not doing it today, you really need to do it. It's just the best way to make things happen. And early and often for Marketplace, and everything goes into ACE.
That comp neutrality, great point. I've heard partners who pass on the cost to their sales team and didn't go too well because they lose out on the Marketplace transactions and they had to revert to what they had before. I completely agree. And that enablement, Barlas, you touched upon this, of the sellers in your organization, that's key as well, that they understand the benefits of co-selling, how the motion is run, so they can, at some point, run it themselves. I think partners sometimes underestimate the effort required and what needs to be done, so great advice overall. I'd love to hear final advice from everyone here for companies out there that are looking to start their co-sell journey, or it could be they're expanding or scaling their partnership. Nelson, love to hear from you first.
Yeah, I keep harping on the same topic. There's a lot of ISVs in the world. There's a lot of companies out there trying to solve problems. Differentiate on what you do. Work backwards from the customer experience to really highlight what and why, how you're special, and then get those references out there so that we can work on sharing your differentiated message.
Great. Derek, how about from your side?
Yeah, for me, it's setting the right expectations for your leaders. It's a give to get program, especially when you start out. When I started, I built a 3-year plan. Year one was all about program building. So our case studies, our competencies, getting our PDM coverage, getting through our foundational technical review and our well-architected review. Very light co-sell, honestly. Year two was more of our, very high, own backup originated co-sell deals. So everything Barlas was just talking about, getting everything into ACE as much as possible, including renewals. It's a huge way to build your brand and then the relationships and trust through those AWS account teams. And then year three is really, you should be a fairly well-oiled machine at that point. And the last thing is if you don't manage your company's AWS-based consumption and service agreements, stay close to it. Make sure that you're leveraging your company's vendor relationship to also accelerate your co-sell partnership with AWS. They're mutually beneficial to each other, and you should be able to leverage each side of it to accelerate your relationship with AWS.
Terrific. Thanks for sharing that. Barlas, how about from your side?
Yeah, I got some. Well, besides join Caddyshack, that's a great one. If you're a Cloud Alliance director, my other great advice is if AWS is the goal, which I think it should be, being the largest CSP out there, then make sure you have a body posture that is facing towards AWS. I heard something that a couple of times now. We are not having AWS in our channel program. AWS has its own channel program, and we're in that. So as long as you understand that you're in AWS's channel program, and they're not here to give us leads, you're here to kind of become a strategic partner. When something comes up that needs your services and you're a strategic partner that they trust with their hard-earned customers, your name will come up. And then if the customer agrees that you're a good fit for them, they will push them to you. But they're not going to blindly, because you spend money with AWS, send you all of these wonderful leads. They've got 15,000 partners that all want the same thing. So becoming a strategic partner is the number one goal for partners. So you can position yourself enough to be able to catch those special times of leads with the come.
I like how you put it, that body posture toward AWS. And common themes that I heard from this panel is start out small and build that trust and build those wins together with AWS. And then even, Barlow, as you mentioned, starting out with the segment or in vertical, know what those are, then you can expand from there, because I have seen partners start relatively small and show great success, and they can expand very quickly after that. Word of mouth is powerful. I've seen that within the AWS ecosystem. And we're seeing that with, for instance, Own Backup, what happened there too. So terrific advice. Love the discussions and insights. And thank you for joining the panel and sharing your experience and all the learnings that you've had.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, June.
This has been fantastic. We actually do have a couple of questions, and great panel. I've been taking notes, and we'll do a quick recap afterwards. But Rachel asked a question, and she says to Derek, so do you enter leads into ACE prior to engaging with the AWS reps? And then she has sort of a second half of that, which is, or does AWS provide a list of AEs to correspond to your sales territories?
I wish it was the latter. No, so we have a pre-qualification process. So I mentioned some of the CRM changes that had to take place in order to lean into the AWS partnership. One of those changes were we have a partner connect process where the account executive requests a partner connect, and there are required fields in that partner connect process where they have to show that A, it's a legitimized opportunity, and B, here are the things that have legitimized it. You also heard me speak about coming with a point of view, right, and a clear ask. And those are the prerequisites that my team requires before registering the deal in ACE. So we don't just come with our hands out. We come with that legitimized deal, and that's how we do it. I will say, though, that through the trust building, once you are successfully launching deals with these account managers and their sales leaders, they will start to share more with you. They'll say, hey, come in. I'd love for you to come into our Monday morning meeting and do an enablement session. And we'll provide you kind of the account managers, the ISV success managers, or the partner success managers in each territory. And we'd love to kind of work with you on that account mapping. So the account list is more of an earn the right scenario, but that's what we do.
Yeah, I thought this was an interesting comment from Sean Taylor also. So Barlas, you made a similar point earlier. Get the mind share of the AWS sellers, right? That's really like have a valuable capability that helps their customer, and you're all over it, right?
Yeah, and something just to add on top of that. Every sales team has different MBOs. So if you're trying to do a MBO, or you're trying to get everything like Marketplace, ISVA, or any of the black box programs that I can't mention, but if you're trying to sell the same way to every team, it's not going to work, because every sales team has a different set of, I have to have this many ISVA deals. I have to have this many Marketplace deals. I have to do so many data warehouse, IoT, AIML, and the sales manager picks what they're going to be responsible for that year, and then assigns those to different salespeople. So understanding from the sales manager of the team you're focusing on what their MBOs are for the year. And yes, there's revenue, but there's also other things. And if you don't hit your MBOs, you cannot level up, right? So it's an extra 15% in pay, more RSUs, more leadership that you get to do. from a level 5, 6, 7, on the way up to 8. If you don't hit your MBOs, you're not getting those levels. So they're just as important as revenue, but each team is different. So make sure you find that out if you're going to focus on a specific team.
Align goals, right? Understand your partner's goals. That's terrific. Thanks, Barlas.
Yep.
Actually, one other thing I want to put up here. There you go, Barlas.
Yeah.
Join Caddyshack.
It's an amazing group.
Yeah. Fantastic. Gosh, thank you all for this terrific session and taking the time and sharing your thoughts. And it's really been fantastic. Thank you all.